It started like most bad things do on a perfectly ordinary Tuesday. The air in Beaufort, South Carolina was thick enough to drink, that heavy, wet heat that clings to your skin like a second layer of clothes that I'd just gotten off a long shift at the boatyard, my hands smelling of grease and salt water, and all I wanted was a cold beer and to not think for a few hours. Maya was with me. She lived in the apartment above mine, and our relationship existed in that hazy, undefined space between friendly neighbors and something more. That we'd share a six-pack on the porch sometimes, our laughter echoing in the quiet street, and there was always this current, this unspoken thing that made my heart beat a little faster whenever she was around. That day she'd caught me on the stairs, her yoga mat slung over a shoulder, and asked if I was headed to the store. "Piggly Wiggly run," she'd said, flashing that smile that always made me feel like I'd just been let in on a secret. "I'm out of wine, and you know dignity, but they don't sell that." So we went together. The Piggly Wiggly on Boundary Street was its usual self, fluorescent lights humming a flat, white note, the air conditioning fighting a losing battle against the humidity. The place had a particular smell, a mix of old linoleum, bleach, and the faint, sweet scent of rotting produce from the back. That it was familiar, almost comforting in its mundane shabbiness. That I couldn't help but watch Maya as we walked the aisles. She was wearing a simple faded gray tank top and a pair of those tight black leggings that left nothing to the imagination. That I found my eyes tracing the line of her spine, the way the muscles in her back shifted with each movement. Her hair was piled up in a messy bun, loose strands sticking to the damp skin of her neck. When she reached for a bottle of Pinot Grigio on the top shelf, the hem of her tank top rode up, exposing a strip of smooth, tan skin and the delicate curve of her lower back. That I felt a familiar, guilty heat stir in my gut. That I looked away, feigning interest in a display of canned corn. That we didn't have much. That my basket held a six-pack of local IPA, a bag of pretzels, and a frozen pizza. Maya had her wine, a tub of Greek yogurt, and a bunch of green bananas. "Optimism," she'd said, winking as she dropped them in. The checkout lines were backed up with after-work traffic, but the self-service kiosks were mostly free. That I hated those things. The robotic, unfeeling voice, the way the scanner would beep with such judgmental finality, but the promise of getting out of there faster won out. "Let's just use the robot," I said, nodding towards the bank of 4 automated stations. Maya shrugged. "Sure, as long as it doesn't try to sell me on its feelings." I scanned my items. Beer, beep. Pretzels, beep. Pizza, beep. Easy. Maya did the same with hers. The machine asked if we wanted to split the payment, and I shook my head, swiping my debit card for the whole total. The transaction processed with a dull chime. Then the receipt started to print. That it wasn't the short, stubby slip of paper I was expecting. That it just kept coming, a long, curling tongue of white paper spooling out of the machine and piling onto the floor. Maya laughed. "Geez, Eli, did you buy the whole store?" I frowned, grabbing the end of the receipt. That it was warm from the printer. That I started to fold it, to stuff it in my pocket, when my eyes caught the text. It wasn't our items. The top had our transaction, sure. The beer, the pretzels, the pizza, the wine, the yogurt, the bananas. But below that, under a blank line, was a new heading. Inventory, refrigerator. 12 Hickory Lane, APTB. 05:17 p.m. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. 12 Hickory Lane. That was my address. Below the heading was a list. * 1/2 gallon 2% milk, expires October 14th. * 1 jar Clausen dill pickles, 3/4 full. * 1 tub Duke's mayonnaise, new. * 1 packet ballpark beef franks. * 1 leftover container Zaxby's chicken fingers, approximate 4 pieces. * 1 bottle sriracha sauce, low. * 1 stick Land O'Lakes butter, unopened. * 1 6-pack of Catawba white zombie ale, 5 remaining. * 1 plastic tub of strawberry yogurt, expired October 10th. * 1 bag of pre-shredded cheddar cheese, open. I stopped reading. My mouth had gone dry. This was impossible. That it was a precise, itemized list of the exact contents of my fridge. That I knew it was right. That I'd seen the expired yogurt that morning, had mentally noted I needed to throw it out. That I'd eaten the 6th white zombie 2 nights ago. The Zaxby's container was from Sunday's game. "Eoy. You okay?" Maya's voice sounded far away. You look like you've seen a ghost. I couldn't speak that I just handed her the receipt. Her eyes scanned it, her playful smile fading, replaced by a confused frown. What is this? Is this some new loyalty program thing? How would it know what's in your fridge? It wouldn't, I managed to croak out. It can't. We stood there, in the buzzing fluorescence of the Piggly Wiggly, people shuffling past us with their carts, and the world felt tilted wrong. This little slip of paper, this mundane object from a mundane errand, had just torn a hole in the fabric of my reality. It's a glitch, Maya said, her voice firmer now, trying to convince herself as much as me. It's got to be some computer error that IT pulled data from the wrong file. Maybe you linked your grocery app to your smart fridge or something? I don't have a smart fridge, Maya, I said, my voice low. I have a 20-year-old Frigidaire that makes a noise like a dying animal every time the compressor kicks on. We left the store quickly, the normalcy of the sliding doors and the humid evening air feeling like a mockery. The receipt was folded tightly in my fist, a tiny, terrifying secret. Maya was quiet on the drive back, staring out the window of my truck that I could see the pulse beating in her throat, a quick, fluttering rhythm. My eyes kept drifting to her legs, the way her leggings stretched taut over her thighs. The contrast was jarring, the primal, simple desire I felt for her, and this cold, digital fear coiling in my chest that I wanted to pull over, to kiss her, to feel the solid, real warmth of her body against mine, to prove I was still in a world where things made sense. That we got back to our duplex on Hickory Lane. The place was a classic low-country shotgun style, painted appealing seafoam green, with a wide porch that wrapped around the front. That we didn't go inside immediately, that we just stood on the porch, the wooden boards creaking under our weight. So, Maya said, her arms crossed over her chest. Are you going to check? I didn't want to. I wanted to throw the receipt away, to drink my beer, and to forget any of this ever happened. But the curiosity was a physical itch, a morbid need for confirmation. That I unlocked my door and went inside, Maya following close behind. My apartment was dim and cool, the blinds drawn against the afternoon sun. That I walked straight to the kitchen, my footsteps loud in the quiet. That I hesitated for a second, my hand on the chrome handle of the refrigerator, then pulled it open. The light bulb inside flickered on, illuminating the familiar landscape of my half-empty fridge. That I didn't even need the list. My eyes went straight to the items, ticking them off one by one in a horrifying mental checklist. Half gallon of 2% milk. Check. Jar of Clausen pickles about 3/4 full. Check. New tub of Dukes. Check. Ballpark Franks. Check. The white Zaxby's container. Check. Sriracha nearly empty. Check. Unopened butter. Check. 0.5 white zombie beers. Check. The expired strawberry yogurt lurking in the back. Check. The bag of cheddar cheese, the opening twisted shut. Check. It was all there. Every single item. Exactly as the receipt had stated. I felt the blood drain from my face. That I gripped the fridge door, the cold air washing over me. Oh God, Eli, Maya whispered from behind me. That she'd seen my reaction. She moved closer, and I could feel the heat from her body, smell the faint, clean scent of her shampoo. Her hand came to rest on my lower back, a gesture meant to be comforting, but it sent a jolt through me. My mind, traitorously, flashed to an image of that hand sliding lower, of pulling her against me. The fear and the desire were a nauseating cocktail. It's right, I said, my voice hollow. It's all right. We spent the next hour trying to logic it away. We called the Piggly Wiggly customer service line, which was just a recorded message. That I tried to find a number for their corporate IT department, which was, of course, impossible. Maya Googled weird receipts and privacy breaches on her phone, but it all led to dead ends or paranoid conspiracy forums that felt both too crazy and not crazy enough. Maybe someone broke in, she suggested, but even as she said it, she knew it was wrong. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was disturbed. The only thing that had happened was that a machine at the grocery store had developed a terrifying, intimate knowledge of my life. The sun went down, painting the sky in shades of violet and orange. We ended up on my porch, drinking the beer I'd just bought. The silence between us was different now, charged with a shared unease. The sexual tension was still there, but it was twisted, strained by this new invisible presence in our lives. That I watched Maya take a long swallow from her bottle, the line of her throat working. A drop of condensation traced a path from the bottle's neck down onto her chest, disappearing into the valley between her breasts. That I should have been turned on. I was. But it was a distant, muted feeling, overshadowed by the pervasive sense of being watched, known. We should just forget about it, she said, not meeting my eyes. It's a one-time thing. A fluke. I wanted to believe her. I really did. The next few days were strained. I was jumpy. Every creak of the old house, every car that drove a little too slowly down Hickory Lane, made my heart stutter. I found myself staring into the reflective black eye of my television when it was off, half expecting to see a figure standing behind me. I started unplugging my laptop at night. I saw Maya less. She seemed to be making herself scarce, and I couldn't blame her. My problem was weird, and weird has a way of being contagious. When I did see her, bringing in her mail or taking out her trash, the easy flirtation was gone, replaced by a polite, careful distance. It felt like a loss, and it made me angry at this nothing that had caused it. Then, on Friday, I had to go back. I was out of coffee. The thought of stepping into that Piggly Wiggly again made my skin crawl, but the alternative, driving all the way to the Walmart on the bypass, was worse. The store was quieter this time. Mid-morning. The same fluorescent hum, the same smell. My palms were sweating as I grabbed a bag of coffee beans. I avoided the automated kiosks like the plague, heading for a checkout lane with a live human being. The cashier was a bored-looking teenager with acne and a name tag that read Dylan. He scanned my coffee, my bread, my lunch meat. Paper or plastic? He droned. Paper? I said, my eyes fixed on the receipt printer. It chattered to life, spitting out a short, normal-looking slip. I snatched it up, my heart hammering. It was just my items. Total. Thank you. Come again. A wave of relief so powerful it left me dizzy washed over me. It was a fluke. A one-in-a-million glitch. I almost laughed. I paid Dylan, grabbed my bag and turned to leave, feeling the weight of the last few days finally start to lift. And that's when I saw him. He was standing by the magazine rack near the exit, not looking at the magazines, but directly at me. He was a tall, gaunt man, dressed in a dark, heavy wool coat that was completely inappropriate for the Beaufort heat. His face was long and pale, with deep-set eyes that seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. His hair was a lank, greasy gray, combed straight back from a high forehead. He wasn't old, but he wasn't young either. He existed in some ageless, unsettling middle ground. Our eyes met for a second, and a jolt, like a static shock, went through me. His expression was utterly blank, devoid of any readable emotion. Not curiosity, not friendliness, not hostility. It was just empty, like a mask. I quickly looked away, a cold dread seeping back into my bones. I pushed through the exit doors, the humid air feeling like a slap. I walked fast to my truck, my keys already in my hand. As I fumbled with the lock, I glanced back towards the store. He was standing just outside the doors now, still watching me. He hadn't bought anything. He hadn't been holding a basket or pushing a cart. He was just there. I got in the truck and slammed the door, locking it. My hands were shaking as I started the engine. I peeled out of the parking lot, my eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, a stark, dark figure against the bright, garish red of the Piggly Wiggly sign, growing smaller and smaller until I turned the corner and he was gone. I told myself I was overreacting. He was just a weird guy. Beaufort had its share of characters, but the image of his face, that profound emptiness, was burned into my mind. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, the events of the past week playing on a loop in my head, the receipt, the stranger, the feeling of violation. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. As I passed the living room window, a movement outside caught my eye. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Across the street, under the dim, buzzing halo of a street lamp, stood the man in the coat. He was just standing there, perfectly still, his hands at his sides, staring directly at my apartment. A primal fear, cold and sharp, lanced through me. I ducked back into the shadows, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. I peered out again, through a narrow gap in the blinds. He was still there. He hadn't moved. I thought about calling the police and saying, "What? There's a man standing on a public street?" He wasn't trespassing. He wasn't making threats. He was just standing. watching that I must have stayed there for an hour, crouched by the window, my muscles cramping that he never moved, that it was unnatural, that stillness. Finally, a car drove down the street, its headlights sweeping across him. In that brief, illuminated moment, I saw his face clearly, still blank, still empty, that as the car passed, he slowly, deliberately, turned his head and looked straight at my window, as if he'd known I was there the whole time. That I scrambled back from the window, pressing myself against the wall. When I dared to look again a minute later, he was gone. The street was empty. The next morning, I felt hollowed out, scraped clean from the inside. That I called Maya, my voice rough with lack of sleep. He was outside. I said, without preamble. The guy from the store. That he was standing across the street last night for hours. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Eli? I'm not crazy, Maya. I saw him. I believe you, she said, and her voice was soft, worried. I do. This is really scary. Have you thought about staying somewhere else for a night or two? The thought had occurred to me, but the idea of being driven from my own home felt like a defeat. That it also felt like it would be giving him exactly what he wanted. No, I said, I'm not letting this bastard run me out. I spent the day in a fog of paranoia. That I checked all the locks twice. That I closed all the blinds. Every sound from upstairs, Maya walking around, her floorboards creaking, made me jump. That I found myself constantly looking out the windows, searching the street for that dark, motionless figure. Around dusk, there was a soft knock on my door. That I flinched, my whole body tensing. That I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Maya. She was holding a paper bag and a bottle of wine. She looked tired, her usually bright eyes shadowed. That I unlocked the door and let her in. Hey. I brought reinforcements, she said, holding up the wine. And tacos from the place on Carteret Street. That I figured you hadn't eaten. I was touched. The simple, normal act of bringing someone food felt like a lifeline thrown into my swirling chaos. That we sat at my small kitchen table.